Vanessa Judelman, tell me about your vision.
So, my vision has always been to lead the leaders and to create leaders who are self aware, confident, and super strategic.
Mm. Tell me more about that.
Well, I've worked with leaders for over 20 years, and I have had some great experiences as an employee with leaders, and I've had also really challenging experience with leaders as an employee. And I have to say my most challenging experience was as an employee where I had a leader who was super challenging for me. I worked in this organization for 5 years. This new leader joined the organization. She was an external hire and was just, Harry, she was someone who was really very controlling and demanding and rude. And I found it so challenging to work with her. And although up until that point, I'd been developing leaders for 10 plus years already in my career, working with this soul sucking leader really helped me solidify my purpose and my vision, which was to support other leaders. Because to be honest, it was such a challenging experience for me. And I know the research shows that people leave leaders, not organizations. And I'd never had that experience before. I always thought that was a statistic. I was like, I think those people who can't work well with leaders are really just not trying hard enough. Believe me, I tried everything. I tried to have crucial conversations with her and set goals together. And this person was my boss. Nothing worked. And so for the first time in my career, I realized, okay, sometimes it's literally not a good fit. And she was a bit of a bully, to be honest. And so when I had that soul sucking experience, which I know so many people can relate to, it really solidified my passion for developing leaders who are self aware and super conscious of how their behaviors are impacting the people around them.
Um, how did you get started into like from that point where you decide, hey,
Mm-mm.
this is really not working out. There has to be a better way, and to like in one way you are today. How did you get onto that path?
I had worked, my background was in education. I'd worked with at risk youth. And after getting a few too many binders thrown at my head, I thought, maybe there's a better way to teach. And I was able to solidify a job in adult education in a training and consulting firm. And I worked there for 10 years and I learned everything about consulting and different methods of assessing leaders and training and developing and how to make learning stick. So that was a great um, training ground for me. And then I moved in house and ran my own teams and built teams and struggled as a leader and had good experiences and challenging experiences as a leader. And from that point, I thought, I feel like after working in corporate for 15 years, I'm really ready to start my own business. And so after having that horrendous leader, I thought, okay, I'm ready to be my own boss. And so that's when I started my own business.
That's awesome. So, that journey, I know, like transitioning from an employee to an entrepreneur, it's a very, very hard pill to swallow, and it's not as easy as people think it is. So, how was that for you, and how did that turn out?
That's a really good point. I get a lot of calls from people all the time who say, "Oh, you've been running your business since 2011. I'm thinking of starting a business. How do you do it?" And I really reiterate with those individuals that leaders have to, when you run your own business, entrepreneurs, just like leaders, have to wear a lot of hats. And so
Mhm.
the first couple of years of your business, it's figuring out which hats do I need to wear, which hats do I want to wear, which hats do I like to wear, and then which hats do I need to delegate? What am I really good at in the business? What do I enjoy doing in the business? What am I not good at? And for me, that was the first 2 years of the business, is figuring that out. Once I figured out what I'm not good at and what I don't enjoy doing, that's when I started building my team to close some of those gaps. So, for example, when you run your own business, you have to market yourself, you have to leverage social media. And I don't really want to learn about algorithms for Instagram or LinkedIn. Like, honestly, it's not my leverage strength or talent. And so I found an amazing marketing team that is their strength, that is their leverage talent. And for example, on Instagram, when I started working with them, I think 3 years ago, I had maybe 800 followers. I have over 25,000 now. So that's really, I think, one of the keys is to get super focused on what your role is in the business and what you are paid to do. And I always say that to my corporate clients too. As a leader, get really clear on what you're paid to do, because whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a corporate leader, you will always have multiple priorities. But if you really understand what you're paid to do and what your strengths are, it allows you to get really clear and focused on your priorities. And it allows you then to delegate the rest.
Wow. There, what you just mentioned there, Vanessa, a lot of people have not realized that in the entrepreneur journey. I don't know if you read the book E Myth or not, but the core behind that book, and there is a very staggering statistics in that. Um, Michael Gerber, the author, states that 96% of businesses in the United States are failing within the first 10 years, right? And then out of the ones that are failing, the 4% they're surviving, how many of them are actually thriving and how many are actually surviving? So that's a very sad number to see. And the faster an entrepreneur realizes that they're not meant to wear all hats, they're meant to delegate things, they're meant to give it to other people. I think that's the core behind building a team. I think you've figured out, at least I'm assuming part of it, where like, hey, this is I figured this out, and I can delegate this to other people, hire the right people I need to. Most people don't even know how to hire people. Most people don't have an idea what to look for when they're looking for people to work for them. They have no idea, and I'm glad someone has that I can have that conversation with. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and most people also don't know how to delegate. That's one of the things when I run training programs with leaders or do executive coaching, even executives. I often work with executives and I say, let's talk about what you need to delegate and teach them how to do a delegation strategy. When you do a delegation strategy, for example, you have to think about, what do I need to delegate? Who do I need to delegate to? How do I need to delegate to them? Right. So that's the reason many leaders don't, or executives or entrepreneurs don't delegate, is they don't know how. They just assume if I give something to somebody, that's delegation. No. Have you clarified your expectations with them? Are they new to the task? If they're new to the task, like for example, a client of mine gave a presentation to somebody and said, I need you to complete this presentation for the client, and then give it to me a week later. Well, this individual sent their leader the presentation. It was terrible. And I said, well, it's not their fault. You just gave it to them and said, do it. And they've never done it before. You
Mhm.
didn't spend the time with them to sit down and say, here's how we do it, and provide them with a sample that they could leverage. So leaders need to learn, and executives and entrepreneurs need to learn how to delegate properly too.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very, very undervalued skill in the market.
Yeah. Yeah.
I struggle with that as well, delegating things the right way. And I bet there's a lot of strategies that you employ to help leaders get that right and then get those things done right. And I think most of it also comes with clarity, right? If a leader has clarity, like, hey, this is my path of
Mhm.
delegating every time, right? Then they have their expectations, and that path gives the employee clear path. Hey, I need to do this. So yeah, that's awesome. I'm
The
so glad.
Yeah, the other tip I can give you
Mhm.
is also that I give leaders all the time is break down the task, because sometimes they want to delegate all or nothing. And my feedback is always, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing mindset. Break down the task, right? And delegate the first part, and then delegate the second part, and then delegate the third part. As I always say to leaders, think about this. Think about that task that you need to get off your plate. Do you want to be doing it a year from now? Yes or no? And they always say, no, I need to get that off my plate. So I'll say, okay, well, then have a 12-month strategy to get it off your plate, right? Month one, do this part of it. And month two, do this part of it. And month three. So, you have to think about delegation strategically too.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us, Vanessa.
You're
I think
welcome.
there's going to be more tips that I'll be talking to you about in another segment. But for this segment, what defines a great leader to you, Vanessa?
So I have after working with leaders for over 20 years, I have a model that I use, which I call the 3 pillars of leadership success. Leaders have to know themselves, manage their team, and lead their business. So the first pillar of being a great leader is have self-awareness. Again, understand your strengths, understand your weaknesses, understand your gaps that need to be filled by your team. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is manage your team. That's part of your job. You have to know how to coach people, give feedback. You have to know how to create a high performing team. And then lead your business is all about change management and executing strategically, and that piece around prioritization and delegation. So leadership is really, really complex. And there's a lot of aspects to leadership. And that's why I break it down into those 3 pillars of leadership success.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.